everybody, and welcome to the Friday Night Drive Western Suburbs podcast. I'm Josh Welge. I'm here with Joel Boenitz, recording here on Tuesday afternoon. Joel, how you doing?
Doing good. It was another hectic week of high school football, but I think I've fully recovered and ready for the final week of the regular season.
Tell you what, I think we have finally hit football weather too. I was just out before we recorded this, and the wind was blowing quite hard out there. And man, I mean, I would not want to pass the ball on a day like today. It is quite blustery out. We finally hit fall weather. I think I might go straight from the polo shirt to the winter coat after being out here this afternoon. So, but anyway, that's okay because we're in week 9. You know, if you're not into coat weather, but week 9, you know, you're just never going to be there. But a lot of great stuff to talk about. This is one of the more exciting weeks of the year, probably this in week 1 at the start of the year. Exciting weeks as we look ahead to week 9, look ahead to playoff pairings night, with a lot of our teams going to be moving on into the playoffs. Big week ahead. But first, we'll kind of do a quick recap of week 8, some of the games that we are following last week, some of the games that we are at. And Joel, I think I'll start with the game that I was at last Friday, Oswego East, 21st crosstown game. 2 teams that will be in the playoffs, 2 of the 5 teams from a very jumbled up Southwest Prairie West league this year. And Oswego came out with a 33-21 win. And really the story of the game, and really, you know, you and I and other sports writers, we do this because we love sports and we love following sports, but we also love telling really good stories. This game last Friday was definitely one of those stories. Oswego sophomore running back Amar Benir, who he's part of sort of a backfield rotation that they've had, getting touches here and there. Funny, he's not even, they have a printed roster at their games, which credit to Oswego for that. He's not even on their printed roster. His number, he was not on there week 4 when I saw them, and he's still not, or week 5 when I saw him, he's still not on there, which he kind of laughed off. But huge game for that kid. Ran for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really gave them quite a spark. They're an offense that's kind of struggled in a few games of late, but really got him going. He's a big kid, 6'2", 180 pounds. Kid just runs so hard. I mean, I wrote my story. He just hits a hole like a rocket. And, you know, kind of runs a little bit high. I think he's a little raw still. But he's a kid that we're going to be following the next couple of years, I think. But really the story though is that, you know, I was interviewing after his big game, and I was talking to him, and he's like, you know, this is a big night. He's turning 16 the following day, which obviously that's a big deal. But his mom is a nurse practitioner that basically, from what I gather from him, kind of travels all over the world for her job. She had just got back from Nigeria that week, and last Friday was the first time, according to Amar, that his mom got to see him in a high school football game. And imagine that. I mean, a kid that, you know, it's not like he starts from every game. This was really a breakout performance for him as a sophomore in a crosstown game in that environment. And his mom gets to see him play high school football the first time. He was excited to talk to me afterwards, but what he really wanted to do is he really wanted to talk to his mom after that game. He was, so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he picked a perfect night to have his breakout performance. I mean, not only does he do it the night before his 16th birthday, does it in front of his mom for the first time, but also, of course, crosstown rivalry game. I mean, you could not pick a better stage to have a breakout game like that. And I mean, you know, what a performance he put up, and came at a pretty dire time for us. You kind of mentioned it. Their offense has kind of been stagnating over the past couple of games. So definitely a big boost for them. And I mean, it seems like Oswego has found a good running back to have for the next couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt about that. They're an offense that they have not struggled all year. Earlier in the year, they did quite well. They were good against Naples Central. They were good against Geneva. They were good against Bolingbrook, but they just kind of it's kind of just like you mentioned, they've stagnated the last couple of weeks, and they really needed kind of a little bit of a jolt of energy, which he provided. Now, will he be that jolt of energy the rest of the year? I don't know. Again, he's one of a few guys that run the ball for them. So this could have been his big game. But I really think with his ability and his running style and just, again, how he attacks the hole, he's a big kid. He's going to be a kid that we're going to be following the next couple of years. I'm quite confident in that. But a very big game for Amar Benier. And, again, great story. Loved reporting it last Friday. A lot of good games last week. Joe, you were at one of them. Aurora Christian, Wheaton Academy in the Chicagoland Christian Conference. And, man, I feel like every week your games go down to the last minute, no matter what conference you're watching.
Yeah, it's a complete opposite from last year, because most of the games I covered, that was like, most of them were just kind of blowouts for the most part. And I'm, in the third, fourth quarter, I'm like, all right, I kind of know what the story is. Now it's this year, and it seems like every single game that I've covered, it hasn't been decided by the fourth quarter, and it makes it so fun to cover. And I'm very happy it's been that way. But yeah, it was another game that was decided on a 2-point conversion. This time it was a failed 2-point conversion that finished the game. I mean, Wheaton Academy, they came back. They were down, I believe, 21-7. Or yes, 21-7. About midway through the third quarter, they scored 2 touchdowns to tie it up. Aurora Christian scored a touchdown with, I believe it was 1:39 left in the game. It was a 16-yard passing touchdown from quarterback Ace Johnson to Jalen Callaway. I thought it was kind of a locked up. And then a 53-yard passing touchdown made it 28-27 with 1:06 remaining. Wheaton Academy decided to go for 2, decided to go for the win to keep their playoff chances alive. And it was Dominic Klipka who had 106 receiving yards in the game, which included a pretty solid one-handed catch, I must say, and then also a nice diving catch in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. He batted down the pass that was going for the end zone, just locked up the game for Aurora Christian. And, Aurora Christian is a small school. They're a Class 2A team, but you could feel the energy throughout just the entire stadium the entire way. It was a great atmosphere all around, and what a win for Aurora Christian there.
I thought it was interesting reading your story that Wheaton Academy coach Jim Johannick, in choosing to go for the 2-point conversion, he kind of pointed back to their Class 4A semifinal game with St. Lawrence that they had. That I think he didn't play it aggressively, and he kind of regretted it, and he didn't want to regret it again. And it may have not turned out the way they wanted, but he seemed like he was pretty comfortable with his decision to go for 2.
Yeah, he mentioned that game against St. Lawrence. Obviously, that was a 31-30 loss in that state semifinal a couple of years ago. But he kind of mentioned how, he definitely did regret not making that aggressive decision a couple of years ago. And he's like, if it didn't work out this time, at least I knew I did everything that I could to, make up for it. But they still had a really solid performance all throughout. I mean, Ethan Brooks, he was stepping in for their usual running back who was injured a couple of weeks ago, but he came in with 106 rushing yards, I believe, and a couple of touchdowns. And they have a lot of juniors on that offense, and they provided a lot of good offense, especially in that second half. So, come next year, obviously their playoff ambitions for this year kind of dropped down because of that loss, moving them to 3-5. But that might be a team that can rise up to the occasion come next year in the Chicagoland Christian. So it should be interesting to watch.
Yeah, they were a team that I did their conferences preview for our preview edition, and I remember they graduated 24 seniors off of last year's team, and I mean that's a lot for a school that size. I mean, they've really had a nice run the last few years. Coach Johannick's done a great job building that program up. They made the quarterfinals. I believe that was a big run that they had. But man, 24 seniors is a lot. And then, in that league, I mean, Bishop McNamara has really resurged this year. Hope Academy is really good. And then they had that week 2 game where they had to go out of state to play a team from Michigan that ended up losing. They went to 0-2 after that. And man, it's teams come back from 0-2 to get to the playoffs. It happens But man, that's tough to come back from, especially when you're going into that league, which is a pretty good league this year, with Hope Academy, McNamara, and then Aurora Christian as well. So, yeah, Wheaton Academy, it's going to be tough for them to get to playoffs now with 3-5. They're going to need a whole lot, a whole lot to go their way this Friday. Same can be said for our friends from Geneva. Tough loss for them to Wheaton North last week. They had a couple touchdown lead. They lost it. They lose by 1. And man, Geneva, it just, things have just not gone their way. I was looking their last 4 losses by a combined 10 points.
Yeah, it's definitely not an ideal season for Geneva. I mean, I kind of talked to Coach Boone Thorgerson last week after, of course, Tyler Drake won the Team of the Week MVP. And, he was just kind of talking about, they're a very battered down team. That's kind of the big thing about it. They ran out of running backs after their in week 5. I think they had to move to Drake as one of their primary running backs, even though he had never really been on offense before. There's just a lot on that. And considering, of course, their 4 losses in conference play has been by 10 points. I mean, it's definitely been a less than ideal season for them. But luckily they are extremely young on that offense. So they should be okay come next year.
Yeah, they just play in a league that's just very unforgiving. Then they took that loss to Oswego. And when you play in the Duquesne Conference, you really need to bank as many wins as possible before the league schedule starts. Similar situation to Bennett, which is probably going to be on the outside looking in now after they lost to Nazareth that week. They play in a very difficult league. They've had a lot of injuries. I think their quarterback got hurt last week, and I mentioned Duquesne Conference. I mean, they took that loss to Glenbard North early in the year, and that was a tough setback going into the Catholic League schedule because, they're playing the likes of Nazareth, Mount Carmel, Fenwick. I mean, it just kind of grinds you up and spits you out, as good as that league is. I remember a few years ago, Montini didn't make the playoffs just because that league was just so difficult. Tough one for Bennett, tough one for Geneva, tough one for Wheaton Academy. I do think that those programs, are going to be back. They have a game this week, of course, but I think they're going to be back next year for sure. Some big games last week involving all these teams are going to be in the playoffs, but sort of conference type things. But in the West Suburban Silver, Glenbard West, who was one of the very last few unbeaten teams in Class 7 and 8A, and they went up to York, and York comes away with a 21-20 win. They did it. Their starting quarterback, Dominic Alfado, he actually broke his collarbone in that loss to Downers Grove North in week 7. But Zach Assad came through in the starting, did a pretty good job in week 7 when I saw him play. But he obviously is going to be the starter going forward. Henry Duda had a huge game, as he has most of the year, had the 56-yard touchdown go-ahead run, and then Hunter Stepanek blocked an extra point that would have tied the game. But York, they're a team that, I was kind of wondering about them after that Downers Grove North game because I'm wondering if they're still going to be as good as they have been because they gave up so many points in that game. But a really good bounce back win for them. And now they're in a position where they could at least win a share of the conference title this week when they go to Lions.
Yeah, I think, last week when we were talking about this game, we were talking about how important it would be for the Glenbard West running backs to kind of perform in that game in order to win. And, after we got off, I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, we didn't really mention Henry Duda, didn't we? So, and sure enough, I'm sure he obviously listened to this and took, a little bit of salt from that. And it was just like, you know what? Time to perform like I usually do. And that ended up being the case. And, I think, it definitely showed, or I think especially after that loss to Downers Grove North last week, a huge win for York. And it kind of shows it's like, hey, even though we didn't play you guys earlier in the season, it has kind of been low on the radar heading into week 6. We're still here. We're still really good. And that win against Glenbard West just proved it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel we've sung the praises of Glenbard West throughout the year, and rightfully so. And we sang the praises of Downers Grove North after that Week 7 win against York, but it kind of just shows the depth and quality of that league. And that York gets a big win against Glenbard West, and then Lyons Township, who was a defending conference champion, they reached the quarterfinals last year. Huge win for them last week. They were leading throughout the game against Downers Grove North. Downers North takes the lead late in the game. Lyons comes back. Their quarterback, Jack Slidham, leads them down the field, and then E.J. Kuhlman scores the go-ahead touchdown. They win the game. Very good win for Lions. Just, again, similar to York, kind of like one of those, we're still here. We're still pretty good. Don't forget about us type games. I think all four of those teams, I think actually Hinsdale Central as well, they're teams that could probably win 1, 2, potentially 3 games in the playoffs, maybe even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's, that win against Downers Grove North for Lions just further cements the West Suburban Silver as probably the most confusing conference in the entire state of Illinois. Because who's going to win? We don't know.
Yeah. You have a good and a deep league when I'm picking your games wrong week in and week out. And I am with the West Suburban Silver. I am with the Southwest Prairie West Division. I mean, it's like throwing darts blindfolded every week.
I'm not doing that good at the Duquesne Conference over the past couple of weeks, so I'm on that same boat there.
No, but they're fun leagues. That's why we enjoy them. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the Week 9. We're going to talk about that Duquesne Conference.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Back here on a Friday Night Drive, Western Suburbs podcast, we look ahead to Week 9, and man, Joel, there's a lot of big games. Maybe not so much like for will they get into the playoffs if they win, but I'm talking about conference implications, conference championships on the line. And I'll start with the game you're going to be at Friday. It's kind of a game that we've kind of had circled ever since Week 7. Batavia, Wheaton, Warrenville South, 2 teams in contention to win the conference title. Batavia, no stranger there. I don't think Wheaton South has won the Duquesne Conference since
they have not.
What do you make about that? I mean, can they break in there and steal it away from Batavia?
I mean, it's the Duquesne Conference. You never have an idea of how a game's going to go, but it's definitely going to be a fun matchup. I will say that. I mean, obviously, both teams have only had one loss in conference play. Of course, Batavia's was devastating loss to St. Charles North back in Week 5, and I believe Wheaton Warrenville South's loss was in Week 4 to Geneva. That was a little bit more convincing, but I think this game's going to come down to how the defense plays and how they defend the run, more importantly. Batavia is coming off of their best week on the ground. They had 287 yards last week rushing against St. Charles East. And, of course, Wheaton Warrenville South, we talk about Owen York the entire time. I think the big thing, though, is how the defenses have played against some of these big opponents in those different facets. I mean, we talk about Batavia and their rush defense more than anything. They're the only team that has held Glenbard North running back Janelle Gatzes to under 100 yards this season. Nobody else has gotten close to that. And I think that's a big implication of how good their rush offense or their rush defense is. And then, of course, we talk about Wheaton Warrenville South and how they've been doing on defense recently. I mean, 14 points against Lake Park. That just came off of 41 points the week before. Obviously, holding St. Charles North to 7 points 2 weeks ago, shutting out Wheaton North in the rivalry game again in week 6. So it's going to be a big game of defense, I believe. And it's whose offense is going to accumulate to that defense better. And whoever does that, I mean, they got a conference title.
Yeah, that number that Wheaton Warrenville South did against St. Charles North, that's the one that really kind of set my antenna going, because I mean, I thought that Wheaton South was a team that's a good team, probably going to get to the playoffs, is going to be near the top of the conference, but I don't know about winning a conference title. What they did to St. Charles North, that shows me that they're right there in the discussion, and we'll see. I mean, Batavia's been a tough nut for them to crack, as it's been a tough nut for many teams in the Duquesne Conference to crack. But man, obviously they got a great running back. Their defense appears to be playing really well, so it should be a lot of fun. And then Batavia, I mean, their running back's been great quarterback. I mean, they got it all going for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, since we're talking about the Duquesne Conference, we're also going to be looking at that game between St. Charles North and Lake Park, because if St. Charles North wins, they share the conference honors with whoever wins that Batavia Wheaton Warrenville South game. So it's going to be second consecutive year where we'll have a share atop the Duquesne Conference, most likely. So we'll see who has those honors at the end of Friday night.
Should be a lot of fun. This game you're going to be at, the game that I'm going to be at. I'm going to be in Bolingbrook on Friday. Yorkville is going to be playing Bolingbrook for the Southwest Prairie West Division title. Both of them come in 3-1, leading everybody else by at least a game. And man, Yorkville, I mean, their defense has been really good. But man, Bolingbrook has just been coming on gangbusters. They lost to Oswego 42-7 about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They have not lost since that time after a 1-2 start. They've won, I think, their last 4 games. TJ Lewis, really good running back. He's got offers from tons of, Big Ten schools and whatnot. He's had a great year. Their quarterback, Tyson Ward, comes off of a big game last week. So they're just very, very explosive, Bolingbrook, with a lot of speed. My question is, can Yorkville make it, their kind of game? I mean, if it gets into the 20s and 30s, that's a Bolingbrook kind of game. I mean, I think Yorkville's going to need to make this sort of a 20-17, 17-14, 14-10 kind of game. And their defense is very capable of it. I mean, I've seen it before. Just a very disciplined defense, well coached. They've done it before. They're going to need to do it again. Kind of the big question mark for Yorkville coming into this game is TJ Harlan, their leading rusher and senior running back. He missed a week 8 game with their coach, Dan McGuire. He gave me the hockey reference, a lower body injury. Let's put it that way. So a little bit of question mark about TJ Harlan's availability for the week 9 game. But should be a lot of fun with the conference title on the line. Both of these teams, I mean, Yorkville was 4-5 last year, and now they're 7-1. Bolingbrook sort of struggled in their first year in the Southwest Prairie West last year. They've both come on this year. Should be a lot of fun on the black turf at Bolingbrook High School.
Oh, so you've been on a blue turf so far this year, and now you're going to be on the black turf.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've covered a 7-on-7 there. Never covered a high school game. So should be a lot of fun there. Another game that not conference so much, maybe going on the line. Maybe so. I forget with all these divisions in the CCL. But Nazareth St. Francis, a matchup that the last couple of years has been a week 9, and then they play again in the semifinals. Well, it's not going to be that way this year with Nazareth moving up in class, but should be an interesting one. St. Francis playing quite well. I'm not quite certain if Brock Phillip is going to be back in the lineup for them, but their backup quarterback did quite well. And then Nazareth, man, they've been on a roll lately.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams have been very, on the rise over the past couple of weeks. I will say one trend I have noticed with St. Francis over this year is they have a tendency of winning back-to-back games and then losing, and then winning back-to-back games and then losing, and then winning back-to-back games like they have these past couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see if they break that trend that they've had this year and get a win over St. Francis. I mean, they've won over Nazareth. I mean, they've had their number in the regular season the past couple of years, but obviously Nazareth has had their numbers come the postseason. So it should be an interesting matchup. Obviously, Nazareth has been extremely good this year. Kind of under the radar in terms of CCL teams. Obviously, you have teams like Mount Carmel as well that has been up on the rise. So I'm kind of interested to see if this game is as highly contested as the last 2 week 9 matchups have been.
My question for that game, because I've had the chance to see St. Francis on 2 different occasions, is St. Francis is going to put up points because their receivers are as good as any around. My question in that game is, can they slow down Nazareth? Because Nazareth has been on a roll lately. I think they've topped 40 points in their last 4 games. And St. Francis, I've seen it twice, and their defense has really struggled in both games that I saw them, against both Kenwood, which was a win, and also in their loss to IHSA Catholic. They kind of struggled to stop the big play in both of those games. And man, it's going to be tough to do against Nazareth, because if you think St. Francis receivers are good, Nazareth's receivers are every bit as good. So that's sort of my question in that game is can St. Francis defense hold up against Nazareth? Other than that, it could be tough because Nazareth is rolling right now. But again, should be a lot of fun. Should be a really good game on Friday night. Another good one, a league that we don't talk about all the time, but I know you previewed, was the Upstate 8 conference. Big one Friday for the Upstate 8 East. Riverside Brookfield, one of the very few undefeated teams left in the state. They're actually undefeated for the first time since 2001. At this point in the year, they are 9-0 that year during the regular season. They go to Glenbard East this week for that conference championship. I don't know what to make of this. I like Glenbard East, I think, in this game, because they've kind of been, sort of the best. South Elgin was for a few years, but I think Glenbard East now. But interested in that game, interested in the quarterback matchup in that game. Glenbard East has a really good quarterback, Michael Nee, who's also a really good basketball player, is a Division I recruit in basketball. But Riverside Brookfield, they've been rotating junior quarterbacks all year long with a lot of success with Giancarlo Garcia as well as Braden Novak. So, that one should be a lot of fun. I'm very curious to see what comes out on that one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I believe both of these teams kind of have, a more different play style from each other. And, it should be really interesting to see if Riverside Brookfield can keep their undefeated season all the way through to the postseason. I mean, I don't know the last time that's happened in the Upstate 8 conference. West Aurora did it last year on the opposite side of the division. But in terms of on this side, I mean, obviously it's only been around for 2 years, and no team had it last year. But, it should be interesting to see if Riverside Brookfield can complete the undefeated season. I mean, this is obviously the biggest test yet against the Glenbard East team that has been so successful over the past couple of years. So, I'm kind of interested to see how this matchup faces out or goes out.
Yeah, Riverside Brookfield, another team sort of similar to Yorkville in that. I mean, they were 4-5 last year, and they missed the playoffs. And it was kind of like, I thought they'd be maybe a little bit better this year with some kids back. But, man, I did not expect them to be 8-0 at this point in the year. I know Suze and Matt Rodevald have talked about it on their podcast as well, that, what's some of the bigger surprises. And Suze is like, I did not see that coming. Not that we didn't think that they'd be good, but 8-0 at this point in the season, that was not on my bingo card.
Actually, I think they might be more like a Bolingbrook, because obviously last year was their first year in the Upstate 8. So it's just like first year in the Upstate 8, go 4-5. Next year, have a chance to win a conference title. So that definitely a good jump in that program over the past year. And it seems like whatever Sam Styler's been doing with those kids over there, it's definitely been working.
Definitely. Good one on Friday. Another good one. York is going to be playing at Lions in the West Suburban Silver. York currently is leading with Glenbard West. They're both 4-1 in that league going into week 9, a half game up on Downers Grove North. Glenbard West plays Proviso West this week, so I'm going to assume that they're going to get a win. But York can get a share of the title, and then I guess they beat Glenbard West head-to-head, so maybe they would be the conference champions if they win. But, man, tough one at Lions. Last year, Lions beat York in week 9 to win the conference title. This year, York can return the favor. But, man, I am fully expecting a lot of good running plays in that game because Henry Duda seems like every week he's over 100 yards. EJ Kuhlman the same way for Lions. Man, should be a great matchup. And a couple teams that sort of positioning themselves for the playoffs. I think they're both in position where if they win, they're almost definitely going to be at home in 8A first round. If they lose, they still might be, but maybe not quite as confident. But, should be a good sort of, matchup for a conference, but also kind of positioning for the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we talked about earlier in the podcast, West Suburban Silver, very unpredictable over these past couple of weeks. And, considering, both of these teams kind of coming off of upset victories, even though, both of them are 6-2 right now, it's definitely going to be a big time matchup between these two teams. And, can York get a conference title out of it? Can Lions upset their conference hopes? I mean, I guess we'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. It should be a good one Friday. Any other games that you're kind of going to be scoreboard watching Friday?
One, kind of going back to the Duquesne Conference, one that I think, is a little bit surprising this week. It's going to be a matchup between Glenbard North and Wheaton North, surprisingly. I know Wheaton North, we kind of talked about them earlier, getting that upset victory over, Geneva, but they're actually one of those teams that are kind of on the cusp of being a 4-5 team sneaking into the playoffs. They have 42 playoff points right now. Their two non-conference games against Simeon and Stevenson are kind of paying off for them right now. So if they can get a victory over a very talented Glenbard North team this year, or in week 9, they might be one of those teams that kind of sneaks in, and they're right on the cusp of like that 6A, 7A line. So there could be a chance that they can sneak into either one of those brackets as well. I mean, if they get a victory there, it might shake up the playoff bracket. So I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to the Wheaton North kids because, I mean, it's been a tough road for them in the Duquesne Conference. They've had some injuries as well. Then they get down a couple touchdowns to Geneva. For them to come back and win the way they did, and now they have stuff to play for in week 9. A lot of credit to those kids. That was a kind of a gut check win for them last week.
For sure. And I mean, obviously they had lost 4 straight heading into that matchup, and getting a win against a Geneva team that was kind of expected to be in the playoffs again. That's definitely a good confidence booster for them, especially heading into this week 9 matchup. And they could see themselves having a week 10, but we'll see.
Yeah, another matchup that I'm kind of keeping an eye on this Friday of interest, not only for the implications for our local teams, but Kaneland is hosting Belleville Althoff, the defending Class 1A state champion. Althoff is currently 4-4, so there's they need a win. They really need a win on Friday. Kaneland, I remember last year they went down in week 9 and they gave Althoff a great game and almost won that game, but they could potentially knock Althoff out of the playoffs with a win. And if they do, there is a potential that 4 of the 8 state champions from last year will not be in the playoffs this year. Chicago Christian and DePaul Prep are already eliminated. Loyola, they're in a very, very dicey situation because they have 4 wins. They got Mount Carmel this week. That's a very tough game. They didn't have a week 2 opponents. The playoff points aren't going to work out very well for them. But man, how strange would that be if we had 4 defending state champions? They're not even in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I'm sure a couple of people would because oh hey, we've got variability out here. Yeah. But it's definitely going to be a great matchup. I mean, obviously, Caitlin's coming off of a win via walk-off field goal over LaSalle, Peru. So that was a big win for them there to clinch their spot in the playoffs. But if they can knock off a reigning state champion and force them out of the playoffs for this year, I mean, I don't know what higher step you could be on heading into the playoffs.
No doubt. Should be a lot of fun. A lot of good stuff coming up on Friday and then into Saturday, and a lot of good stuff on Friday Night Drive. I'm going to be back here tomorrow with Steve Susie as we look at the week 9 across the state. Of course, you got the podcast for Kankiria, South and West coming up. And then Friday night, the big one, Steve and Matt are going to be in the command center for their Friday Night Live. Seuss will probably be doing his until 2 or 3 in the morning as he figures out his projections and his playoff brackets. So a lot of stuff to look forward to this weekend. And then, of course, Saturday night, the brackets come out. We'll have the breakdowns for all of our markets. I think we're going to get out of here. For Joe Boenitz, I'm Josh Welge. Everyone have a great week and a great week 9.